A billionaire stages his own deportation just to see if his family would even notice he was gone. What happens next will make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty. Stay until the end because the family's true reaction will absolutely shock you. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Let's get into it. Meet Marcus Chen, a 58-year-old tech billionaire worth over $3.2 billion. He immigrated to America 35 years ago with nothing but a college acceptance letter and $200 in his pocket. That was back in 1989 when he was just a wide-eyed 23-year-old from Taiwan with dreams bigger than his bank account. Marcus spent his first year in America eating ramen noodles and sleeping on a friend's couch while studying computer science at MIT. He worked 3 part-time jobs, sending whatever little money he could spare back to his elderly parents in Taipei. Every dollar mattered. Every sacrifice had purpose. He remembered wearing the same pair of shoes for 2 years straight, the soles so worn down he could feel every crack in the sidewalk. But Marcus had vision. While his classmates were chasing high-paying corporate jobs after graduation, Marcus saw the future of cloud computing before anyone else did. In 1994, he maxed out 4 credit cards, borrowed money from everyone who'd listen, and launched his first startup from a cramped studio apartment in Cambridge. The first 3 years were brutal. He ate 1 meal a day to save money. He coded for 16 hours straight, fueled by cheap coffee and pure determination. His girlfriend at the time left him, saying he cared more about computers than people. Maybe she was right, but Marcus believed in something bigger than himself. In 1997, everything changed. A major tech corporation saw the potential in his cloud infrastructure platform and acquired his company for $47 million. Marcus was 31 years old and suddenly wealthier than he'd ever imagined. But he didn't stop there. He took that money, invested it wisely, and launched 3 more successful companies over the next decade. By 2010, Marcus was a billionaire. By 2015, he'd tripled that wealth. He married Jennifer, a beautiful woman he met at a tech conference, and they had 3 children together. David was born in 1992, Sarah in 1996, and Michael in 1999. Marcus gave them everything he never had growing up: the best schools, the finest clothes, exotic vacations, and unlimited opportunities. He built them a mansion in Beverly Hills with 12 bedrooms, and home theater, an Olympic-sized pool, and a 6-car garage. Each child got their own luxury vehicle when they turned 16. Credit cards with no limits, trust funds that could sustain multiple lifetimes. Marcus thought he was being a good father by providing abundantly. But somewhere along the way, things shifted. The kids stopped coming to family dinners unless bribed. His wife Jennifer became more interested in her social status than their marriage. Conversations became transactional. Every phone call from his children started the same way. "Hey Dad, I need," followed by a dollar amount. David, his oldest son, was now 32 years old and had never held a real job. Why would he? His trust fund paid him $50,000 a month just for existing. He spent his days golfing at exclusive country clubs, gambling in Monaco, and collecting vintage sports cars he barely drove. When Marcus suggested he might want to work in the family business, David laughed and said, "That's what employees are for, Dad." Sarah, his 28-year-old daughter, fancied herself a social media influencer. She had 200,000 Instagram followers, mostly bought, and spent her days staging photo shoots in designer clothes paid for by Marcus's credit cards. She posted inspirational quotes about building your empire and hustling for your dreams while living rent-free in a penthouse Marcus owned. The irony was completely lost on her. Michael, the youngest at 25, was in his 6th year of college, having changed his major 7 times. He was currently studying entrepreneurial philosophy at a private university that cost $80,000 a year. Marcus paid every bill without question, even though Michael attended maybe half his classes and spent most of his time partying. Jennifer, Marcus's wife of 30 years, had transformed from the ambitious woman he married into someone he barely recognized. She chaired multiple charity boards, not because she cared about the causes, but because it gave her access to other wealthy socialites. She spent $30,000 a month on personal shopping, employed a full-time glam squad, and seemed to view Marcus as more of a financial provider than a life partner. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in September. Marcus had just closed a major business deal and wanted to celebrate with his family. He called Jennifer first. "I'm at a spa appointment, darling. Can't talk." Click. He called David. Straight to voicemail. He called Sarah. "Dad, I'm literally in the middle of a content creation session. Can this wait?" He called Michael. "Hey, Dad. Yeah, I'm studying. What's up? Oh, wait, it's not money stuff, is it? Because I'm really busy right now." Marcus sat in his corner office, 70 stories above Los Angeles, and realized something devastating. His family didn't love him. They loved his bank account. If he disappeared tomorrow, they'd mourn the loss of their ATM, not their father and husband. That's when the idea struck him. What if he actually did disappear? Not permanently, but long enough to see how they'd react. Would they fight for him? Would they even notice he was gone? Or would they simply move on to planning how to divide his assets? Marcus spent the next 2 weeks planning the most elaborate test of family loyalty ever conceived. He contacted a film production company that specialized in creating realistic scenarios for movies. He hired 3 professional actors to pose as ICE deportation officers. He worked with his lawyers to create convincing fake documents about supposed visa irregularities from his immigration in 1989. The paperwork looked legitimate, complete with official seals, case numbers, and deportation orders. He even rented a fake detention facility in the outskirts of San Bernardino where he could disappear to while monitoring his family's response. He installed hidden cameras throughout his house, all completely legal since he owned the property. His executive assistant, Rebecca, was the only person who knew the truth, sworn to absolute secrecy. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. He would insist on a mandatory family dinner on Sunday, October 15th. Everyone had to attend, no exceptions. During the meal, the actors would arrive, present the deportation order, and take him away in handcuffs in front of his entire family. Then he'd watch from his secret location to see what they did next. Would they call lawyers? Would they fight the deportation? Would they visit him? Or would they simply calculate their inheritance and move on with their lives? Rebecca tried to talk him out of it. "Marcus, this is extreme. What if it backfires? What if they're so traumatized they can't function?" Marcus looked at her with sad eyes and said, "Rebecca, I need to know the truth. I'd rather know who they really are now than live the rest of my life in a comfortable lie." On October 15th, everything was set in motion. Marcus sent out a formal dinner invitation to his family, something he hadn't done in years. The message was clear. Attendance was mandatory. He even offered to pay each of them $10,000 just for showing up, which sadly was probably the only reason they agreed. Sunday arrived. Marcus dressed in a crisp white shirt and tailored slacks, trying to appear normal despite his racing heart. The dining room table was set for 5, with his personal chef preparing a 7-course meal. At 6:30 p.m., his family began arriving. Jennifer arrived first, dripping in diamonds and complaining about traffic. "This better be quick, Marcus. I have a charity breakfast tomorrow morning and I need my beauty sleep." She kissed him on the cheek without making eye contact, already scrolling through her phone. David rolled in at 6:45, 20 minutes late, wearing a designer tracksuit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Dad, this better be important. I had to cancel plans for this." He didn't say what plans. Marcus suspected it was nothing. Sarah arrived at 7 with her phone already recording. "Hey fam, family dinner vibes," she announced to her Instagram story before even greeting anyone. She was wearing a dress that still had the price tag tucked inside, probably planning to return it after getting enough photos. Michael was the last to arrive at 7:15, looking disheveled and slightly hungover. Sorry, lost track of time." He gave Marcus a half hug before collapsing into his chair and immediately checking his phone. They sat down to dinner. The first course was served, a delicate butternut squash soup with truffle oil. Jennifer took one spoonful and pushed it away. "Too heavy, I'm on a cleanse." David didn't even try it, instead texting someone under the table. Sarah took a photo of it from 6 different angles before tasting it. Michael actually ate, probably because he was too hungover to care. Marcus tried to make conversation. "So, David, how have you been? What have you been up to lately?" David looked up from his phone, annoyed at the interruption. "You know, same old stuff, golf mainly, thinking about buying a boat." "A boat? That's exciting. What kind?" "I don't know, Dad, a big one. Does it matter?" Marcus turned to Sarah. "How's the influencer business going, honey?"
Sarah's eyes lit up. Finally, someone asking about her passion. "Oh my God, Dad, so good! I'm literally about to hit 250K followers. Once I get there, I can start charging like $5,000 per sponsored post. Maybe more. I'm manifesting it." "That's great, sweetheart, but are you making any income now?" Sarah's smile faded slightly. "Well, not yet, but that's normal in this industry. You have to invest in yourself first, you know? Actually, speaking of investing, I need about $15,000 for a new camera setup and some clothes for content creation." There it was, less than 20 minutes into dinner, and someone was already asking for money. Marcus turned to Michael. "How's school going, son?" Michael shrugged. "It's whatever. Thinking about switching majors again. Maybe film studies or marine biology? I don't know yet." "You've been in college for 6 years, Michael. Don't you think it's time to—" "Dad, education is a journey, not a race. My advisor says I'm finding myself." Marcus bit his tongue. Finding yourself on someone else's dime is called tourism, not education. But he didn't say that. Not yet. Jennifer finally looked up from her phone. "Marcus, why did you really call us all here? I know you. You don't do family dinners unless something's wrong. Are you sick? Please tell me you're not dying, because I just booked a trip to the Maldives for next month." And that's when the doorbell rang. The timing was perfect. Marcus had choreographed this down to the minute. It was exactly 7:15 p.m. He stood up, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. "I'll get it." He walked to the front door, his family's chatter continuing behind him. He could hear Sarah saying something about needing new photos for her aesthetic. He opened the door. 3 men stood on his porch, dressed in official-looking uniforms with badges clipped to their belts. They looked stern, professional, exactly like real ICE officers. The lead actor, a man named James, who Marcus had hired specifically for his intimidating presence, held a clipboard with official-looking documents. "Marcus Chen?" James asked, his voice authoritative. "Yes, that's me." "Sir, we have a deportation order for you based on visa fraud and falsified documentation from your 1989 immigration application. You need to come with us immediately." Marcus had rehearsed this moment a dozen times, but actually living it felt surreal. He kept his voice steady. "There must be some mistake. I've been a legal resident for 35 years. "Sir, we're just executing the order. You can contest it in court, but right now you need to come with us." The commotion at the door had drawn his family's attention. He heard footsteps rushing toward the foyer. Jennifer appeared first, her face a mask of confusion. "What's going on? Who are these people?" David came next, then Sarah with her phone already out and recording, and finally Michael, still holding his napkin. James repeated the deportation order, this time louder for everyone to hear. He pulled out handcuffs, an addition Marcus hadn't originally planned, but that the actors suggested for realism. This was it, the moment of truth. Marcus watched his family's faces carefully. Jennifer's first reaction wasn't concern for Marcus, it was logistics. "Wait, how long will this take? I have the Anderson Charity Gala on Thursday. Marcus, you're supposed to write a $100,000 check for that." Marcus felt his heart sink, but he stayed in character. "Jennifer, I'm being deported. The gala is the least of our concerns right now." David stepped forward, but not to defend his father. "Hold on, officers. Is there bail or something? Can we pay to make this go away?"
His mind was already on the transactional solution, not the human one. Sarah, still recording, had a strange look on her face, not fear or sadness, but something else. Marcus would later realize she was already calculating the viral potential of this moment. Michael was the only one who seemed genuinely distressed. "Dad, this is crazy. There's no way this is real. You've been here legally forever. We need to call lawyers right now." The actors moved forward and gently placed handcuffs on Marcus. They weren't tight, just for show, but the metal felt cold against his wrists. This was really happening. "You have the right to contact an attorney," James said, following the script perfectly. "But the deportation order is immediate. You'll be held at a detention facility pending your hearing." As they led Marcus toward the door, he looked back at his family one last time. Jennifer had her phone out, probably texting her divorce lawyer already. David was pacing, muttering something about offshore accounts. Sarah was still filming. Only Michael looked truly upset, his face pale with shock. "Mom, do something!" Michael shouted. Jennifer looked up from her phone. "Do what, Michael? These are federal officers. We can't just—" And then Marcus was outside, being led to a black SUV parked in his driveway. The actors helped him into the back seat, and the door closed. Through the tinted windows, he watched his family standing in the doorway. The door closed, and they drove away. Marcus was taken to the fake detention facility, a warehouse that had been converted to look like a holding area. Once inside and alone with his assistant, Rebecca, he collapsed into a chair. The handcuffs came off immediately. "How are you feeling?" Rebecca asked softly. Marcus didn't answer right away. He pulled out his tablet, which was connected to all the hidden cameras in his house. He pulled up the live feed from the dining room. His family had gone inside. They were sitting around the dining table. And they were eating. They were actually continuing dinner as if nothing had happened. "I can't believe this," Marcus whispered. On the screen, Jennifer was on the phone. "Yes, I need to speak with someone about power of attorney. My husband just got deported, and I need to access our accounts. How long does that take?" David was on his laptop, frantically typing. Marcus zoomed in on the camera. He was searching how to access offshore accounts without primary holder and breaking a trust fund early. Sarah was already drafting something. Marcus enhanced the image. It was a TikTok script. "So, my billionaire tech mogul dad literally got deported in front of me. Storytime thread, part 1 of 10. You won't believe what happened next." She was already monetizing his pain. Michael was the only one who seemed genuinely upset, sitting with his head in his hands, but even he pulled out his phone after a few minutes. His girlfriend was calling, and Marcus watched his youngest son's priorities shift in real time. "Yeah, it's crazy. No, I can't come over tonight. Well, maybe for a little bit." Within an hour, Michael had left the house to meet his girlfriend. Marcus watched for hours that first night. His family didn't call a single immigration lawyer. They didn't try to visit him. They didn't organize any kind of rescue effort. Instead, Jennifer opened a bottle of wine and started making calls to her wealthy friends, spinning the story to make herself the victim. "Can you believe this is happening to me? I'm absolutely humiliated." Day 2 was worse. Marcus watched as Jennifer started going through his home office, looking for documents. She found his will and read through it, taking notes. She called her financial advisor and started asking questions about how quickly she could access funds in case of emergency. David showed up at the house with a lawyer, but not an immigration lawyer, an estate planning attorney. Marcus listened through the camera's audio as his son discussed contingency plans and protecting family assets. Not once did David mention trying to bring his father home. Sarah posted the first video to TikTok. "So, my billionaire tech mogul dad literally got deported yesterday, and I'm still processing." The video got 500,000 views in 3 hours. She was thrilled. She started planning a whole series with fake crying selfies and dramatic music. Michael was the only one who seemed conflicted. He did call an immigration attorney on day 3, but when told it would cost $25,000 just for a consultation, he hesitated. "Let me think about it and call you back," Marcus heard him say. He never called back. By day 5, Marcus was devastated, but he forced himself to keep watching. He needed to see the full truth. Jennifer started redecorating. She hired an interior designer and began planning changes to the house. I always hated Marcus's dark wood aesthetic. Let's go with something lighter, more feminine. This is my house now. She turned his home office into a consultation room for her charity work. His desk, where he'd built billion-dollar companies, was replaced with a vanity table and ring lights. Day 7 brought the most painful revelation. David met with a financial advisor at a restaurant. Marcus had tapped his son's phone, which was admittedly an invasion of privacy, but at this point he needed to know everything. "My father is likely not coming back," David told the advisor. "Immigration cases like this, especially with visa fraud allegations, they almost never work out. I need to know how to access the family trusts without him." The advisor, a cautious man named Robert Chen, looked uncomfortable. "David, have you tried getting your father legal representation? Sometimes these cases can be resolved if—" "That's complicated," David interrupted. "The point is, we need to protect what we have. Can you help me or not?" Robert studied David for a long moment. "Have you even visited your father in detention?"
David shifted in his seat. It's difficult. The facility is far, and I've been busy organizing things on this end." It was a lie. The fake facility was 30 minutes from David's condo. He just hadn't bothered to visit. Day 10 broke Marcus's heart completely. Jennifer hosted a party, an actual party with champagne and catering and her wealthy friends laughing in his living room. The charity gala had been that Thursday, and she'd gone without him, telling everyone her poor husband was dealing with legal troubles abroad. Now, on Saturday night, she was celebrating. Celebrating what, exactly? Her freedom? His absence? Marcus watched through the cameras as his wife of 30 years laughed and drank and showed her friends the remodeling plans. "It's been a difficult time," she told one friend with practiced sadness, "but I'm trying to stay strong and look forward." She wasn't strong. She was relieved. Sarah posted video number 7 of her series. It had accumulated over 3 million views total, and she'd landed 2 sponsorship deals from brands wanting to capitalize on the viral story. She was making money off his deportation. Their family tragedy was her brand opportunity. Michael had stopped calling immigration lawyers entirely. He was back at school, back to his normal routine, only occasionally mentioning his father when friends asked. "Yeah, it's rough," he'd say with practiced nonchalance, "but there's not much we can do right now." On day 14, Marcus had seen enough. He'd witnessed the complete truth of his family's feelings toward him. They didn't love him. They loved his money, his status, his provisions. But Marcus the man, Marcus the father, Marcus the husband, he was disposable. Rebecca drove him back to his mansion late on a Saturday evening. Jennifer was hosting yet another gathering, this time a small, intimate dinner with 12 guests. Marcus walked through the front door without knocking. It was still his house, after all. The foyer was full of people in cocktail attire, holding champagne glasses and laughing. The conversation died instantly when they saw him. Jennifer was mid-sentence, telling some story about her charitable work, when she turned and saw her husband standing in the doorway. She dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the marble floor, crystal exploding into 1,000 pieces, much like Marcus's illusions about his family. The room went completely silent. You could hear ice cubes settling in glasses. "Marcus?" Jennifer's voice was barely a whisper. Not excited, not relieved, shocked. And underneath that shock, something else. Fear. David appeared from the living room. "Dad, when did you—" Sarah rushed in from the kitchen, her phone already out, always documenting, never actually present. Michael was the only one not there. He was at a party,
Marcus would later learn. Marcus stood there, looking at these people he'd sacrificed everything for. He'd worked 70-hour weeks to give them comfort. He'd missed birthdays and soccer games and recitals to build an empire that would secure their futures. And this was their response to his crisis. Parties and redecorating and social media content? "We need to talk," Marcus said quietly. "All of you, right now." Jennifer tried to compose herself. "Marcus, darling, we have guests. Maybe we could—" "Now!" Something in his voice made everyone move. Jennifer ushered her guests out with hasty apologies. David and Sarah reluctantly put their phones away. Within 10 minutes, the house was empty except for family. They gathered in the living room. Marcus remained standing. He pulled out his tablet. "I need to show you something," he said. His voice was calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. He played the footage. Starting from the moment he was arrested, he showed them everything. Their conversation continuing over dinner, Jennifer's calls about power of attorney, David's internet searches about accessing offshore accounts, Sarah's TikTok drafts, Michael's quick departure to meet his girlfriend. He showed them 14 days of footage. Jennifer drinking wine and laughing about finally getting to redecorate, David meeting with lawyers about protecting assets instead of bringing his father home, Sarah's viral video series monetizing family tragedy, the parties, the remodeling, the complete and total absence of concern for his well-being. By the time the last video finished playing, Jennifer was pale. David couldn't meet his father's eyes. Sarah's hands were shaking. "It was a test," Marcus said simply. "The deportation was fake. The officers were actors. The facility was rented. I wanted to know who you really were, without my money clouding the picture." Jennifer found her voice first. "Marcus, that's cruel. We were in shock. We didn't know what to do." "You knew exactly what to do," Marcus interrupted, his voice rising for the first time. "You could have called an immigration lawyer. You could have visited me. You could have fought for me. Instead, you threw a party. You redecorated my office. You tried to access my accounts. You monetized my suffering." He turned to David. "You met with an estate attorney before an immigration attorney. You researched how to steal from family trusts. You told your advisor I probably wasn't coming back and you needed to protect what we have. Protect it from what, David? From me, your father?" David opened his mouth, but no words came out. Marcus looked at Sarah. "You turned our family's worst moment into content. 3 million views. Sponsorship deals. You were crying on camera for sympathy while planning your next brand partnership. You created a GoFundMe, Sarah, for a family worth billions. You were scamming people for pocket change and attention." Sarah's face crumpled. "Dad, I was just trying to process—" "You were trying to profit." The room fell silent. Jennifer tried one more time. "Marcus, please, we can work through this. We were scared and confused and you showed me exactly who you are," Marcus finished. "When I actually needed you, when I was supposedly facing deportation and detention and losing everything, you didn't fight for me. You fought for my money." He pulled out a folder of documents and placed them on the coffee table. "Jennifer, these are divorce papers. I'm filing on Monday. You'll get what the prenup stipulates, which is substantial, but nowhere near what you were hoping for when you called your lawyer on day one." Jennifer's face went white. "David, your trust fund is dissolved effective immediately. You're 32 years old. It's time to learn what the real world is like. The car, the condo I pay for, the credit cards, all of it, gone by end of week." David jumped to his feet. "You can't do that. That money is mine." "No, that money was mine, and I chose to give it to you. Now I'm choosing to stop. Every dollar you have from this point forward, you'll earn yourself." He turned to Sarah. "Your credit cards are canceled. Your penthouse lease, which I pay for, ends this month. The car I bought you goes back to the dealership. And if you post one more video about this family, I will sue you for defamation and privacy violations so fast your follower count won't natter." Sarah burst into tears, real ones this time. "But Dad, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do?" "Figure it out," Marcus said without sympathy. "You're 28 years old. Get a job. Build something real. Or don't. But you won't do it on my dime anymore." The room was chaos. Jennifer was demanding he reconsider, David was threatening to sue, Sarah was crying into her hands. Only Michael's absence spoke volumes. Marcus held up his hand. "I'm not done. Michael." He pressed a button on his phone, and Michael answered via speakerphone. "Dad, what's going on? Sarah is texting me, freaking out. Michael, I need you to come home now." "I'm at a party. Can it wait until—" "No." Something in Marcus's tone cut through Michael's objections. "Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes were excruciating. Jennifer alternated between begging and threatening. David called his own lawyer, who told him he had no legal standing to challenge the trust dissolution. Sarah scrolled through her phone, already calculating her financial disaster. When Michael finally arrived, confused and slightly drunk, Marcus sat him down separately from the others. "Michael, I'm going to give you a choice that I'm not giving your siblings. I'll tell you why in a moment, but first I need you to understand what happened." Marcus explained everything: the fake deportation, the test, what each family member had done during those 14 days. He showed Michael the same footage he'd shown the others. Michael's face went through a journey of emotions: shock, disbelief, shame, and finally, understanding. "You called one immigration lawyer," Marcus said. "Just one. You hesitated when they quoted the price, but at least you tried. You looked conflicted. You seemed genuinely upset, even if you didn't follow through." Michael's eyes were wet. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have done more. I should have—" "You should have. But you were the only one who did anything at all. So I'm giving you a choice." Marcus pulled out another document. "Option 1. I cut you off completely, just like your siblings. You figure life out on your own. Option 2. You come work for me. Real work. You start in the mailroom of my company, making $45,000 a year. You work your way up like every other employee. No special treatment, no nepotism, no safety net. You prove you care about more than money. You build something real." Michael stared at the document. "Why would you offer me this?" "Because you showed me a glimmer of humanity your siblings didn't. It was small, and it wasn't enough, but it was something. I'm betting on that something. But if you waste this chance, there won't be another one." Michael looked at his father, really looked at him, maybe for the first time in years. "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, but you'll fail trying, which is more than you're doing now." Michael took a shaky breath. "When do I start?" "Monday morning, 7 a.m. sharp. Wear a suit you buy yourself, not one I paid for." Michael nodded, a mixture of fear and determination on his face. Marcus turned back to the rest of his family. "I've said everything I need to say. You have 1 week to remove your belongings from any property I own. After that, the locks change." Jennifer made one last desperate attempt. "Marcus, please, we can go to counseling. We can fix this. I love you." Marcus looked at his wife of 30 years, the woman who'd shared his bed, raised his children, built a life with him, and he felt nothing but sadness. No, you don't, and that's okay. I think I understand that now. You loved what I provided, the lifestyle, the status, the security. But you never loved me. If you had, you would have fought for me. You would have visited me. You would have moved heaven and earth to bring me home. Instead, you threw a party. He walked toward the door, then paused. Rebecca will coordinate the logistics. Don't contact me directly. And with that, Marcus Chen walked out of his own mansion and didn't look back. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Jennifer hired 3 different lawyers, all of whom told her the prenup was ironclad. She'd get $20 million, the house in Malibu, and 2 cars. For someone married to a billionaire for 30 years, it was practically nothing. She'd been planning on hundreds of millions of dollars. She remarried within 14 months to another wealthy tech executive, proving that Marcus had been more replaceable than she'd thought. David burned through his remaining trust fund money in less than 18 months. Without the monthly stipend and with expensive habits to maintain, he hemorrhaged cash. The cars were sold, the condo was lost. He eventually moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in the valley and, with no employment history and no skills, struggled to find work. He tried to reconcile with Marcus several times, always through lawyers, always asking for money. Marcus's response was always the same: no. David eventually found work as a sales associate at a luxury car dealership, selling the same vehicles he used to own. The irony was not lost on anyone. Sarah's influencer career collapsed almost overnight. When the truth about the fake deportation came out, her followers felt betrayed. She'd built a narrative around being a grieving daughter, and it was all based on a lie. Brands dropped her. Her follower count plummeted. She had to delete most of her accounts and start over. Without her father's money, she couldn't maintain the aesthetic that had attracted followers in the first place. No more luxury apartments, designer clothes, or exotic vacations to photograph. She eventually got a job in retail management, making $42,000 a year. She still posts on social media occasionally, but her content is different now. More authentic, more humble, maybe even more human. But here's where the story takes its most interesting turn. Michael. Remember Michael? The youngest son who almost disappeared into the same patterns as his siblings, but was given one last chance? Michael showed up that Monday morning at 7 a.m. sharp. He was terrified. He'd bought a suit from Men's Warehouse with money he borrowed from a friend. It didn't fit perfectly, but it was his. Marcus's assistant, Rebecca, met him in the lobby. "Your father won't give you any special treatment," she warned. "You're employee 2847. If you want to talk to him, you schedule an appointment like everyone else." Michael nodded. "I understand." He started in the mailroom. His job was to sort and deliver mail throughout the 12-story office building. It was humbling. Former fraternity brothers who now worked at the company would see him pushing a mail cart and smirk. People who recognized him as the boss's son whispered behind his back. But Michael showed up every day. He was on time, he did his work without complaining. And slowly something shifted inside him. For the first time in his life, he was earning his own money. It wasn't much, just $45,000 a year, but it was his. After 6 months, he was promoted to administrative assistant in the marketing department. After a year, he was a junior marketing coordinator. After 18 months, a full marketing manager. Not because of his name, but because he worked harder than anyone else, trying to prove something to himself as much as to his father. 2 years after the fake deportation, Michael was a senior manager in business development, earning $120,000 a year. He'd moved into his own apartment, bought his own car, and started paying back everyone he'd borrowed money from over the years. And somewhere in that journey, he and Marcus started having coffee. Not as father and son, not yet, but as two people getting to know each other again. Marcus would ask about Michael's projects at work. Michael would ask his father for advice on business strategy. Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt something new. One Saturday morning over coffee, Michael asked the question he'd been holding inside for 2 years. "Dad, why did you really do it? The fake deportation. Was it just to punish us?" Marcus considered the question carefully. No, it wasn't about punishment. It was about truth. I spent 30 years building wealth, thinking I was giving my family everything they needed. But I gave you everything you wanted instead. I confused provision with love. And in doing so, I created people who confused money with relationship. He took a sip of coffee. I needed to know if anyone would miss Marcus the person or just Marcus the bank account. The answer hurt, but it was honest. "Do you regret it?" Michael asked. "Every day," Marcus admitted, "but not because I did it. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that I had to create an extreme situation to see the truth. I regret that my family's love was so conditional that it couldn't survive 2 weeks without access to my money." Michael looked down at his coffee. "I almost failed your test too, Dad. I called one lawyer and gave up when it cost too much. That's not much better than what David and Sarah did." "No," Marcus agreed, "but you showed conflict. You showed doubt. You seemed genuinely upset even if you didn't know what to do about it. Your siblings showed relief." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Michael said something that surprised Marcus. "I'm glad you did it. I was becoming them. Another year, maybe 2, and I would have been exactly like David. No purpose, no drive, just living off your work. You saved me from that." Marcus felt his eyes sting. "You saved yourself, son. I just gave you a reason to try." That conversation happened in November, just over 2 years after the fake deportation. By that point, Marcus had completely restructured his life. He'd sold the mansion in Beverly Hills and moved into a more modest home in Pasadena. Still beautiful, still comfortable, but not the monument to excess his old house had been. He dramatically increased his philanthropic work, but not through charity galas and social networking. He funded scholarships for immigrant students, just like he'd been. He invested in startups run by people who reminded him of his younger self, hungry and driven. He taught business classes at community colleges. He dated occasionally, but kept his wealth quiet in the early stages. He wanted to know if someone liked Marcus before they knew about the billions. He'd been burned once by marrying someone who loved the lifestyle more than the man. David reached out every few months, always through lawyers, always asking for help. Marcus's answer was always the same: "I'll help you learn to fish, but I won't give you fish." He offered to pay for vocational training, resume services, interview coaching. David always refused. He wanted money, not effort. Eventually, David's calls stopped coming. Marcus heard through mutual acquaintances that his oldest son had finally found stable work as a general manager at a car dealership, making around $75,000 a year. It wasn't the lifestyle he'd been accustomed to, but it was honest work. Marcus was proud of that, even if they weren't speaking. Sarah surprised everyone by writing a book 3 years after the deportation. It was called Filtered: How I Lost Everything by Faking Everything. She didn't paint herself as a victim. She owned her mistakes, her superficiality, her exploitation of her father's crisis for content. The book sold moderately well, not enough to make her rich, but enough to show she'd learned something about authentic storytelling. She sent Marcus a copy with a handwritten note inside. "Dad,
I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I finally understand what you were trying to teach us. I'm sorry it took losing everything to learn it. Love, Sarah. Marcus read the book in one sitting. It was honest, painful, and showed genuine growth. He didn't reach out immediately, but he kept the book on his shelf where he could see it. Jennifer tried to maintain contact through the divorce proceedings, but Marcus kept everything strictly through lawyers. She sent him letters occasionally, long, rambling messages about how she'd changed, how she understood now, how they could start over. Marcus never responded. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. But Michael was the success story Marcus hadn't expected. By year 3, Michael was Director of Strategic Partnerships, earning $185,000 a year based purely on merit. He'd earned the respect of every person in the company who knew his work, not his name. More importantly, he and Marcus had rebuilt a real relationship. They had dinner every Sunday, not in mansions with 7 courses, but in regular restaurants where they could actually talk. They discussed business, life, relationships, mistakes, and growth. They'd become friends, not just father and son. One Sunday evening, about 3.5 years after the fake deportation, Michael brought someone to dinner. Her name was Amy, and she was a software engineer at a startup. She wore a simple dress and had a warm smile. She had no idea who Marcus was beyond Michael's father who works in tech. Over dinner, Marcus watched how they interacted. Amy teased Michael about his terrible golf game. Michael laughed easily, comfortable in his own skin in a way he'd never been before. They split the check without discussion, each paying their half. Amy talked about her work with genuine passion, not just as a means to an income. After she left to take a phone call, Michael leaned forward. "Dad, I think she's the one." Marcus smiled. "She doesn't know about the money, does she?" "Not really. She knows I work for a tech company and make a decent salary. She knows you're successful, but she doesn't know the full scope. I'm scared to tell her." "Why?" "Because what if it changes things? What if she becomes like how we used to be?" "I understand that fear intimately. If it changes things, then she's not the one. But if she's really who you think she is, she'll love you the same whether you're worth $185,000 or $185 million. Michael nodded slowly. "When should I tell her?" "When you're ready. But don't wait too long. Real relationships are built on honesty, even uncomfortable honesty." 3 months later, Michael proposed to Amy in the same modest apartment he'd been renting for the past 3 years. He told her everything before he proposed, about his past, about the fake deportation, about his father's wealth, and his own journey from spoiled trust fund kid to self-made professional. Amy listened to the whole story, her eyes wide. When Michael finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "That must have been really hard, having to rebuild yourself like that." Not, "Your father is a billionaire," not, "Wait, your family is that wealthy?" Just empathy for the difficult journey Michael had been through. She said yes to the proposal, and Marcus knew his son had found someone genuine. The wedding was small, just close friends and family. David didn't come, still too proud to face his father. Sarah came but kept her distance, still working through her own shame. Jennifer sent a gift, but wasn't invited. It was Amy's day, and Michael wanted it to be about building a future, not rehashing the past. Marcus gave a toast at the reception. "My son taught me something important. It's never too late to become who you're supposed to be. He could have stayed angry at me for the test I put his family through. He could have remained the directionless young man he was 4 years ago. Instead, he chose to grow, and in doing so, he became the man standing here today, worthy of a woman like Amy." He raised his glass. "To Michael and Amy,
May your love be based on who you are, not what you have." The toast was met with applause and tears. Later that night, Michael found his father standing alone on the reception venue's balcony, looking out at the city lights. "Thank you," Michael said simply. "For what?" "For loving me enough to let me fail. For caring more about who I became than how comfortable I was. For the test." Marcus turned to his son. "You know, people think the test was about finding out if my family loved me. But that wasn't really it. I already knew the answer, deep down. The test was about giving all of you a chance to see yourselves clearly. What you did with that information was up to you." David and Sarah saw themselves and looked away. "Yes, but you looked and you decided to change. That's why we're here today." They stood in comfortable silence, father and son, watching the city below. Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them here. The fake deportation that had destroyed his family had also, paradoxically, saved the one relationship that mattered most. 5 years after the fake deportation, Marcus did an interview with a business publication. The journalist asked him about his philosophy on wealth and family. "I made a mistake that many wealthy parents make. I thought providing everything would prove my love. But real love sometimes means letting people struggle, letting them fail, letting them discover who they are when the safety net is gone." The journalist pressed him. "But don't you regret losing your relationship with most of your family?" Marcus considered this carefully. "I regret that the relationships weren't real to begin with. I don't regret discovering that truth. You can't fix a problem you don't know exists. The fake deportation was painful, but it was honest, and I'd rather live with painful honesty than comfortable lies." "What about your son Michael? What made that relationship salvageable when the others weren't?" "Michael showed me he was capable of guilt, of conflict, of questioning himself. That meant he was capable of growth. My other children showed me they were capable of justification and rationalization. Those qualities don't lead to change. They lead to more of the same." The interview went viral, sparking debates about wealth, family, and the ethics of testing loved ones. Some people called Marcus cruel. Others called him a genius. Most people were somewhere in between, uncomfortable with his methods, but unable to argue with his results. Sarah read the interview and cried. She'd been working on her relationship with money and herself, but reading her father's words made it clear how much damage she had done. She wrote him a letter, not asking for anything, just acknowledging her role in the family's breakdown. Marcus wrote back. It was the first direct communication they'd had in 5 years. His message was short. "I see you're trying. Keep trying. That's all any of us can do." It wasn't reconciliation. Not yet. But it was a door left slightly ajar. David read the interview and got angry. He wrote a response article for a different publication, painting himself as the victim of his father's psychological manipulation. "He set us up to fail," he wrote. "He created an impossible situation and judged us for our very human responses." The article got some traction, but most readers saw through it. One particularly pointed comment read, "Your father disappeared for 2 weeks. You didn't visit him once. That's not an impossible situation. That's basic human decency you failed to show." David deleted his social media accounts after that. Jennifer read the interview while sitting in her new husband's mansion in Newport Beach. She was living a life remarkably similar to the one she'd had with Marcus: wealth, status, charity boards, social climbing. But something about the interview bothered her. She'd never questioned whether she loved Marcus or just his lifestyle. The question had never occurred to her. Love and lifestyle had always been intertwined in her mind, inseparable. But reading his words, she realized he'd seen through her in a way she'd never seen through herself. She didn't reach out. What would she say? She'd already moved on to the next wealthy husband. But late at night, sometimes she wondered what would have happened if she had fought for him. If she had been the wife he needed, instead of the wife who needed his money. By year 6, Michael and Amy had a daughter. They named her Grace, and Marcus cried when he held her for the first time. "A second chance," he whispered. "A second chance at what?" Amy asked. "At being a grandfather. At showing up. At doing it right this time." Marcus was there for everything. Not paying for everything, but present for everything. He showed up to babysit. He came to Grace's first birthday party at Michael and Amy's modest 3-bedroom house. He taught her to count and read. He was present in a way he'd never been for his own children. One evening, while Marcus was reading Grace a bedtime story, Michael pulled Amy aside. "Do you ever think about the money? About the fact that my father could make our lives so much easier if we just asked?" Amy looked at her husband. "Every day." Michael's face fell. "Really?" "Of course," Amy said. "I'm human. It would be amazing to not worry about our mortgage or daycare costs or saving for Grace's college. But I love the life we're building. I love that we're earning it together. And I love that Grace is going to grow up understanding the value of work and money and effort." She touched Michael's face gently. "Your father's test didn't just reveal who your family was. It revealed who you could become. Don't waste that by going back to the easy path." Michael pulled her close. "How did I get so lucky?" "You earned it," she said simply. Year 7 brought unexpected news. David had a son. He named him Marcus Jr., which felt like either an olive branch or a guilt trip. He sent Marcus a birth announcement, but no invitation to meet the baby. Marcus stared at the announcement for a long time. His first grandson from David, and he wasn't welcome to meet him. It hurt in a way he hadn't expected. He'd made peace with losing David as a son, but losing access to his grandson felt like a fresh wound. He wrote David a letter, not through lawyers this time, but directly. "I understand you don't want me in your life. I respect that decision, even though it hurts. But your son is innocent. Whatever anger you have toward me, he doesn't deserve to be punished for it. If you ever change your mind, I'd like to know my grandson. No strings attached, no judgments, just a grandfather wanting to know his grandchild." David never responded, but 6 months later, Marcus received a photo in the mail. David and his son at a park. On the back, David had written a single sentence, "Maybe when he's older." It wasn't much, but it was something. A crack in the wall David had built. Marcus put the photo in his wallet and carried it everywhere. Sarah had gotten married by year 8. She married a teacher named James who made $52,000 a year and had no idea who her father was. She didn't tell him until after they were engaged, terrified he'd leave her when he learned about her past. James had laughed. "You really thought I'd care that your dad is rich? Sarah, I fell in love with the woman who stocks shelves at Target and makes me laugh. I don't care about your family's money." They had a small wedding. Sarah didn't invite Marcus, not because she didn't want him there, but because she didn't know if she'd earned the right to ask. On her wedding day, she received a delivery. A simple card that read, "Congratulations on finding something real. Love, Dad." Inside was a check for $10,000. Not a fortune, not a trust fund, just enough to help with the wedding costs. The note at the bottom said, "Not an inheritance, not charity, just a father who's proud of who you're becoming. No strings attached." Sarah cried for an hour. It was the first money her father had given her in 8 years, and it meant more than all the millions he'd spent on her before combined, because this time it came with pride instead of obligation. She sent a thank you note with photos from the wedding. Marcus sent back a single line, "You look happy. That's all I ever wanted for you." They started emailing after that, slowly, carefully, rebuilding something new. Not the relationship they'd had before, but something more honest. Sarah told him about her life, her job, her growth. Marcus shared stories about Grace and his work. Neither pretended the past didn't happen, but they both tried to build something better than what had been broken. By year 9, Marcus had mostly retired from active business management. He still owned his companies, still made strategic decisions, but he'd handed day-to-day operations over to a carefully selected CEO. He spent his time teaching, mentoring immigrant entrepreneurs, and being present for Grace's childhood. Michael had risen to VP of Strategic Development, earning $320,000 a year based entirely on merit. Some people in the company knew he was the owner's son, but most knew him only as the guy who'd started in the mailroom and worked his way up through sheer determination. One evening at Sunday dinner, Michael asked his father a question that had been bothering him. "Dad, do you think David and Sarah would have changed if you just talked to them instead of doing the fake deportation?" Marcus put down his fork and thought about it. "Honestly, no. I'd tried talking to them for years. I'd tried cutting them off gradually. I'd tried setting boundaries and conditions. None of it worked because they didn't see a problem. They thought their lifestyle was normal, deserved even." He continued, "The fake deportation wasn't about punishing them. It was about creating a situation so extreme that they couldn't ignore the truth about themselves. When I disappeared and they had to choose between fighting for me or protecting their access to money, they chose money. That choice showed them who they'd become." "But it destroyed the family," Michael pointed out. "No," he said firmly. "It revealed that the family was already destroyed. I just made it visible. You can't fix something you refuse to acknowledge is broken." Amy joined the conversation. "Do you think you'll ever fully reconcile with David and Sarah?" Marcus considered this. "With Sarah, maybe. She's doing the work. She's changing. She's building a real life. I can see the effort even from a distance. With David, I don't know. He's still angry, still feels entitled, still sees himself as the victim. Until that changes, there's nothing to reconcile." Grace, now 4 years old, spoke up from her coloring book. "Grandpa, why don't you just give them money so they're not angry anymore?" Everyone fell silent. Out of the mouths of babes came the question that cut to the heart of everything. Marcus knelt down next to his granddaughter. "Grace, if someone is only nice to you when you give them things, are they really your friend?" Grace thought about this seriously. "No. Real friends like you even when you don't have toys." "That's exactly right," Marcus said. "And real family loves you even when you don't have money. I needed to know who loved me and who just loved my money." "That's sad," Grace said with the profound simplicity of childhood. "Yes," Marcus agreed, "it is sad, but it's also important to know the truth." Grace went back to coloring, satisfied with the answer, but her question stayed with Marcus. Could he have bought their love back? Probably. A few million here and there, and David would be calling every week. Sarah would be Instagram official about their reconciliation. Jennifer would probably try to remarry him. But it wouldn't be real. It would be the same comfortable lie he'd lived with for decades, where everyone pretended wealth and love were the same thing. Marcus had learned the hard way that he'd rather be alone and honest than surrounded by people who only loved his bank account. Year 10 arrived, a full decade since the fake deportation that had changed everything. Marcus was now 68 years old, still healthy, still engaged with life, but thinking more about legacy. He established a foundation focused on helping immigrant entrepreneurs, fully funded with $500 million. The foundation would provide interest-free loans, mentorship, and resources to people trying to build something from nothing, just like he had. Michael ran the foundation as its executive director, while still maintaining his role in the family business. On the 10th anniversary of the fake deportation, Marcus did something unexpected. He invited his entire family to dinner, not to his home, but to a private room at a modest restaurant. David, Sarah, Jennifer, Michael, Amy, Grace, Sarah's husband James, and even David's wife and son Marcus Jr. Not everyone came. Jennifer sent her regrets, saying it would be too painful. David almost didn't come, but his wife convinced him that their son deserved to know his grandfather. They gathered awkwardly around a large table. David sat as far from Marcus as possible. Sarah kept apologizing for existing. Michael tried to play peacemaker. The tension was thick enough to cut. Marcus stood up. "Thank you for coming. I know this isn't comfortable for most of you. I'm not here to relitigate the past or demand apologies. I just wanted to tell you something important." He looked at each of them. 10 years ago, I faked my deportation because I needed to know the truth about my family. What I discovered hurt more than I can express. But I've spent the last decade thinking about my role in creating the situation that made the test necessary. David crossed his arms defensively, but Marcus continued, "I gave you everything except what you actually needed. I gave you money instead of time. I gave you things instead of lessons. I gave you comfort instead of challenges. I thought I was being a good father by removing all obstacles from your path, but I was actually robbing you of the chance to become capable adults." He paused. "So yes, you failed my test. But I failed you first. Long before that, I created your dependence and then resented you for being dependent. That's on me." Sarah started crying. David's jaw was clenched, but his eyes were wet. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Marcus said. "I'm not even asking for reconciliation. I just wanted you to know that I see my part in this. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry for what I did wrong, even if I'm not sorry for revealing the truth." He sat down. The table was silent. Then David spoke, his voice rough. "You humiliated us. You made us look like monsters." "No," Marcus said quietly. "I created a situation where your true priorities became visible. What you did with that information was your choice. Michael changed. Sarah is changing. You chose to stay angry. Because you destroyed my life," David shouted, drawing looks from other patrons. "I stopped funding your lifestyle," Marcus corrected. "Your life is what you make of it now. You have a job, a wife, a son. That's not destruction. That's reality." David stood up abruptly. "I can't do this." He looked at his father with years of rage in his eyes. "You want to know the truth? I hope I never become like you. You chose money over family. You chose testing us over trusting us. You chose being right over being kind." He walked out, his wife hurrying after him with their son. The door closed behind them with finality. Sarah wiped her tears. "Dad, I need to say something." Marcus nodded. "You were right. About everything. I was using you. I was using your money, your status, your crisis for my own benefit. I didn't love you. I loved what you provided. And the worst part is, I didn't even realize it until you were gone." She took a shaky breath. "I've spent 10 years trying to become someone worthy of a second chance with you, not because I want your money back, but because I want a real relationship with my father, even if it's too late." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "It's not too late, Sarah. It never was. I just needed to see that you were trying to change, not just trying to get back in my will." They stood and hugged, really hugged, for the first time in a decade. James, her husband, shook Marcus's hand. "Thank you for raising a woman who could learn from her mistakes." The dinner continued, less tense now. Grace entertained everyone with stories from preschool. Amy talked about her work. Michael discussed the foundation. And slowly, painfully, honestly, a new family began to take shape. Not the same family that had existed before, but something more authentic. As the evening ended, Marcus pulled Michael aside. "Thank you for convincing me to do this tonight. Are you glad you did it?" Marcus looked at the remnants of his family gathering their coats. Sarah laughing at something James said. Grace holding her mother's hand. Yes, even seeing David's anger was worth it. At least now I know where everyone stands. No more pretending. Do you think he'll ever come around? Maybe, maybe not. But that's his journey now, not mine. I can't force anyone to grow. I can only control how I show up. They walked out into the cool night air. Marcus thought about the past 10 years. He'd lost a wife, estranged 2 children, and destroyed the family structure he'd spent decades building. But he'd gained something, too. Honesty, self-awareness, one genuine relationship with his son, a real connection with his daughter-in-law and granddaughter, a chance to rebuild with Sarah. Was it worth it? He still asked himself that question sometimes. The answer was complicated. He'd traded comfortable lies for painful truths. He'd traded surface-level harmony for deep-seated authenticity. He'd traded being liked for being respected. And yes, on balance, it was worth it. Because Marcus Chen had learned something that took most people a lifetime to understand. Love without honesty is just transaction with better marketing. And he'd rather have one real relationship than a dozen fake ones, no matter how expensive those fake relationships were to maintain. The fake deportation didn't destroy his family. It revealed that his family was already destroyed, held together only by money and obligation. Some people would call that cruel. Marcus called it necessary. As Marcus drove home that night, alone but not lonely, he thought about the empire he'd built. Not the business empire, but the personal one. It was smaller than before, messier, more complicated. But it was real. And real, he'd learned, was worth more than any amount of money could buy. So here's the question that matters. Would your family pass this test? If everything you provided disappeared tomorrow, would they fight to get you back or fight over your assets? Think about that carefully, because the answer might change everything about how you view your closest relationships. If this story made you think differently about family, loyalty, and the difference between provision and love, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because I've got more shocking real-life stories coming your way that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about human nature. Drop a comment right now telling me, was Marcus wrong for testing his family like this, or did they reveal exactly who they were when the money disappeared? I'm reading every single comment, and I want to know what you think. And if you're hungry for another mind-blowing story about deception and family secrets, click the video on your screen right now, because what happens next will absolutely shock you. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. I'll see you in the next one.